It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to this edition of Q&A with the Coach. So I've got a cold, got a sore throat, so we're just gonna have to deal with the low, grovelly voice. I always have a low, grovelly voice, but just missing the upper registers of the voice right now, I suppose. This is what we got. We have a question from Mary Amalasala. There's a lot of A's in that name. Who says, question, how many times a week should I spar with a partner? Most of my work is solo, but I want to improve. Okay, that's awesome you want to improve. It's awesome you're doing some solo work, because if you have the personal initiative to train by yourself, then that's great. That means you've got the personal initiative to do what it takes to improve as a martial artist. Okay, without somebody pushing you constantly, without somebody lighting a fire under your butt, if you are motivated to do it by yourself, great. But you will need training partners, you will need sparring partners, because fights involve more than one person. Specifically, two. So you're going to need a sparring partner. How often should you spar? Ideally, under ideal circumstances, with ideal training partners who know how to train at an ideal and safe and sustainable rate, you can and should spar. Well, I was about to say daily, but you can spar daily. Should you spar daily? No, but there are different levels of sparring. You should not do hard sparring daily. Absolutely not. Hard sparring should be the rare exception to your training most of the time. You don't need a lot of hard sparring. There are also downsides to doing a lot of light sparring. If most of your training is free sparring meaning, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's spar, let's go. And then whatever you want, you aren't going to learn a great deal. You're going to fall back onto your hobbies, onto what you're already good at, onto what you already know, and you are never really going to step outside that box, and you're not going to expand yourself as a martial artist, as a fighter, beyond that point, which is where positional sparring comes in. Positional sparring is super important. So you want to learn a new technique, you want to learn to deal with a situation you're currently uncomfortable with, you've got to put yourself in those positions and spar from there with specific objectives. That's pretty simple. That kind of sparring you should do often. That should be most of your sparring. Free sparring should be an exercise to determine where your strengths and weaknesses are, to determine where most of your positional sparring should be taking place. So if you do a 5-minute round of free sparring and you find that you keep getting swept, you're on top in the garden, you keep getting swept, and that's the overlying issue, then it should be pretty obvious, well, we need to see why we keep getting swept and see what we can do about that and construct a positional sparring drill where we can shut down the sweeps. Put yourself in a better position so you're not getting swept. If you keep getting stuck on the bottom in mount, keep getting mounted and grounded and pounded, and you feel helpless there, in your free sparring, look at that situation and assess what you need to do to improve. Maybe you need to spend a good 100 hours on the bottom, escaping mount and improving position from mount. Maybe you don't need that much, but some people might. But you don't like that position because it's uncomfortable and it's embarrassing and it takes a lot of work and effort to improve position from there. It's not fun getting punched, even if it's light little taps, even if it's just touches with the glove, because it's embarrassing. So a lot of people avoid these embarrassing situations in their free sparring as much as possible. And so they never improve there. I see this a lot with people who come from striking backgrounds, and then They want to do mixed martial arts, and they love free sparring, and in their free sparring, they dance on the outside the whole time. They put space between themselves and their sparring partners. They never really engage. Sometimes they'll land a punch or a kick and pat themselves on the back and skirt around the outside and run the whole time. And then once in a while, somebody who is better than them takes them down and squishes them, and then they don't want to spar with that person anymore, because that person has exposed a hole in their game. They don't know how to grapple, meaning they don't actually know how to fight, meaning they're an incomplete martial artist with a massive hole in their game, and it's just been exposed, and that doesn't feel good. Now, the responsible thing to do as a fighter would be to review that tape and realize, hey, I have a huge hole in my game. I don't know how to grapple. I don't know what to do when somebody mounts me. I don't know how to stop a takedown. I don't know how to wrestle. I don't know how to initiate a takedown, meaning I don't know how to stop one. And therefore, I need to construct some positional sparring drills. And by drill, I don't mean a sequence where you just go through the motions. I mean a positional sparring drill where there's an objective. Let's say you're mounted, and your single objective is improve your position from the bottom. Get out, stand up, get a reversal, get on top, or pull off a magic trick that I don't know about, and somehow win that fight from the bottom. So you should be doing a lot of that. Let's say you're learning a brand new technique. Maybe the omoplata is brand new to you, and you want to incorporate that in your game. And you go to a jiu-jitsu class, and they teach you the omoplata. You see it like 3 or 4 times. You rep it out 10 times with your partner, and then the coach is like, all right, let's roll. And then you roll, and then you never hit the omoplata once in rolling. And then the next day you forget how to do the omoplata, and 4 months later, maybe they have another class on the omoplata, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember kind of learning that technique once, and then it sticks a tiny bit better, but it still takes you 3 years before you ever even attempt the omoplata in sparring. And that is a less effective way to learn. What if, on that day 1 where you're taught the omoplata, we construct a positional sparring drill where you are 2/3 of the way toward finishing the omoplata. You start with your leg over the shoulder. You start sitting up. You start controlling your opponent. All you have to do is apply the pressure in the correct way while your opponent fights back. You're 1 step away from winning. Okay, cool. Try that, and probably the first few times you're going to fail because you don't know how to apply the pressure in the correct way against resistance. And so your opponent's going to get out, and then you're going to learn a few lessons, and then you realize maybe after the 10th try, oh, if I apply the pressure this way, if I commit my weight forward or back or downward in this fashion, then I can control him better when he starts fighting back in this way. When he starts to posture up, I can break his posture by kicking my leg down or whatever the case may be. And then you can master finishing the omoplata from that position. Then you dial back the drill a little bit. You're 2 steps away from finishing the move, then 3 steps away. And then eventually, with all of those reps against the variable levels of resistance and it's not even the variable levels of resistance, against the variable levels of position. Because position is the true power. It's not strength. It's not how hard your opponent is fighting back. Because you can thrash all over the place like a stupid white belt and absolutely fail, exerting maximum strength and maximum power toward a very stupid goal. And this happens in every jiu-jitsu gym ever with every white belt ever when they start learning jiu-jitsu. It's inevitable. But once you start realizing position is the power, then the light bulbs will start to click in your mind, and then, and only then will you really start to be able to use technique correctly. And then when you roll, when you free spar, after doing all of this positional work, these movements will become accessible. Going to make a quick analogy to fighting games. Do you remember the original Street Fighter 2 video game, Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior? Man, I was excited about this game. I'd seen fighting games where you press a punch button or a kick button, but this game was kind of special because it had these secret moves where you push the joystick and the buttons in a certain fashion, and then you'll do a fireball or a jumping, spinning hurricane kick or a rising dragon punch or something like that. You'd have these super secret special moves that were a little more powerful than the regular moves. Sometimes a lot more powerful. And now, it's one thing to just like read in the gaming magazine, oh, this is how to do the secret moves, all right? And then you try to do it in real life and you're like, oh, wait, hold on a second. He just punched me when I tried to do my secret move and he jumped over my fireball and I don't know the timing and the spacing. Now, fighting games are not really like fighting at all, but the analogy here is applicable. If you want to do your special secret ninja moves from a fighting game, you have to practice them. And you've got to practice them in very specific situations. If all you do is put the inputs into your mind, never having played the game, never having gone through the specific positions in the game where those moves are even applicable, and then you try to spam those moves without that experience, you're going to fail, especially against anybody who knows how to play those games. Real fighting is analogous to that. So, you asked me a simple question, I'm giving a fairly complex answer. How often should you spar with a partner? That type of sparring you can do daily. I say can rather than should because if you're starting out and you're working on your own, you are probably going to go out there and find some crappy training partners who don't have a wise level of control. And it may be irresponsible for you to spar with that person at all, let alone regularly, let alone every day. You might be the irresponsible training partner, and it might not be wise to spar with you ever, let alone every day. So make sure that you and your training partners are on the same page, that you practice pulling your punches, controlling your power, not doing stupid things, not spazzing out, and otherwise doing things that can injure and cripple your training partners. And you're going to be golden. But that takes work, that takes effort, and that takes practice. As much, if not more practice, than learning how to do specific fighting techniques when push comes to shove. All right, guys, there's my answer. If you have questions for the next Q&A with the coach, just leave them in the comment section down below. I read your comments. I love the comments. Comments are my favorite thing about YouTube. Even the nasty, stupid ones, I love those. But the nice ones are good too. But my absolute favorite, the questions. So once again, leave your comments in the questions below. That's where I get the material for Q&A with the coach episodes. Oh, and before I forget, shout out to this channel's sponsor, xmartial.com. Sent me this sweet hoodie. It says, I come to roll. It's some aliens and a UFO, and they want to do jiu-jitsu with you, so they come down in their spaceship and they announce their intentions that they want to do some grapple sparring with you. So go check them out, xmartial.com. Don't forget to use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything on their website. It's fight gear, rash guards, fight shorts, gloves, mouth guards, all kinds of great training gear, and streetwear like hoodies and t-shirts. So go check them out, xmartial.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.